This is a brief overview of how I use the Smart Notebook software to design a couple specific lessons. I especially love to use it when I am reviewing vocabulary and giving the students a quiz, or reviewing for a test, or reviewing and doing a vocabulary quiz at the same time. So the first thing that I like to do whenever I open up the Smart Notebook software or program is to color the background. I don't like a white background, so I did that the last time. If you go up to the Format button, you're going to click on that. You're going to scroll down to Background, and it's going to give you some options here. My favorite is the gradient fill. As with anything on the internet, you should play with it. And I like to put like a lighter color yellow and maybe a green. This allows me to have a colorful background and to also keep my black writing without having to change my font color, and it just makes it easy, makes it look nice. After I've created my background, before I do anything else, I like to copy or clone the page, which is if you click on the sidebar here on the slide, click on the arrow, you can clone it up to however many times you need to. And for this particular demonstration, I'm going to put in a few clones so that I have plenty of pages to demonstrate some of the tools that I like to use. Let's go one more. So whenever my students come into the classroom, I normally have some kind of warm-up activity. On vocabulary days, I like to run a crossword puzzle. And typically I give them about 4 minutes to complete it on their own. To create the crossword puzzle, I like to use the Puzzle Maker website, which is what you see here. If you follow the directions, my title I typically indicate Startup 4, and I leave a blank line for students to put the date. I leave the width at 50, and I like my square size at 25 because that usually gives more space for enough boxes to fill in the puzzle. Let's make up a couple words. We'll go with gamete. That's actually a word I am working with right now. So you enter the word, you put a space, you enter the clue, then you hit enter for the next one. Fertilization, when egg meets sperm. And I'm just going to do a couple, and you can hit the create puzzle button, and there it is. A lot of the times I will copy this image and paste it into whatever program I like. You can use the URL instead. It's up to you. Use it as you like if you use the program. Then I like to go back to my Smartboard program, and there's a couple different ways that you can approach this. I typically just write my answers underneath. So I might say across, 2 was gamete, and I'm just making up numbers, 4 was fertilization. And one of my other favorite tools that I use in Smart Notebook is what we call the screen shade. And that simply covers up your information. And you can move it around, so a lot of the times I leave the title open so students can see it. And then I leave the numbers open so that students don't ask me, well, where are we? Students can spend forever on a crossword puzzle, so to make sure that they don't spend forever, I click on this little picture icon over on the left side, and I type in timer. When I type that in, lo and behold, under the interactive multimedia, that's this bottom tab, it was already open, but if I click on that, there's a couple timers to choose from. So basically you pick the one you like, you enter it into your presentation, and place however many minutes you want to allow the students to work on it. I usually go for about 4 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes, and then at that point, if it rings, I tell them, all right, it's time for clue time. The second device or second tool, another option, if you would rather, another tool that I like through Smart Notebook is the screen capture tool right here in the middle up top. If you click on that, this is the actual crossword puzzle that I used. Rather than just list the answers, you could actually take a picture of the crossword puzzle. I'm going to do just a portion of it since I don't have the entire document open. It will place that picture into your Smart Notebook that you have open, and you can take that and place it on the page. Then you could actually have students, if you lock the screen, I like the lock button, you could actually have students come up and use a pen to write in the answers on your smart notebook. That takes more time, however, and so when it comes to these types of things, I'm looking to go quickly. So yeah, they could use the pen on the smart board, and they could come up and write in answers themselves, and that allows them to interact with it. Or even better, if you have the Splashtop app on your iPad, you can walk to a student, give them your iPad, and they could actually write it in directly at their desk. So that might even be a better opportunity or option for you to use. The next tool that I like, so when I'm reviewing vocabulary, I like to use a flashcard format. So if I click over here under the tool, I type up top Flipper. And what I get with the Flipper is a box that looks like this. It should show up here in a second. And that allows me to put in a clue on the front. So if I put egg or sperm cell, and then when you click on the back button, you can place the answer. I really like these because they flip back and forth, and you can practice with the students in class. And sometimes you can have the students come up. Once you've created one page, or even one flipper / vocab card, flashcard, you can simply copy and paste it over and over again, however many times you want to place it on that screen. So we typically review all of the vocab terms, and then after they take the vocab quiz, I like to play a review game with my students. When it comes to the review game, I pick team captains. So yet again, another tool that I really like, if I type the word random up here, it gives me some different options to randomly choose. Items, words, numbers, whatever it is you're looking for. I like to use a random word chooser. The only problem with this program, with this interactive multimedia, is that it only allows for up to 36 names. So if you create it once, you can actually copy and paste this to any other smart notebook lesson that you've created. So there's a couple names of students that I have, but I do have classes that are larger than 36. So what's an option you can use instead? You can use the number generator. You can blow that up, and a lot of times I will use the screenshot that I used previously. I will go to my attendance online, and there's numbers next to each student's name. So I will screenshot my attendance roster that has the number next to their name, and then I enter the range. So if I have 41 students in a class, there we go, and it's set up. This allows you to drop the number down. I don't really see a need to do that, but every time you click here in the middle, it's going to pull a different number up for you. So that's the number generator. That gives you another option if you don't want to type in all the names. This is actually a little bit quicker than the names, but they always get nervous seeing their names potentially pop up. So I really like the random name chooser. So once I pick my team captains for my review game, I like to create questions. What percent of offspring will be tall if you cross two heterozygous parents? And I like my questions to be hidden. So what they do after they pick their teammates, they sit in rows and they have an erasable whiteboard at the front desk, and that would be the person that is representing the team for that particular question. So I have all these questions that are on the page, and I hide them. And I hide them by using the shape tool up top. I pick whatever shape I like. This one's a great one because you can modify how it looks to specifically go around whatever you're using. And then I click on that, and if you right click, you can actually go to the properties button at the bottom, And you can fill it with a color. So I'm going to fill it with a solid fill. I want a color that actually looks good with the current colors that I have. That's better. And then if you click on object animation, you can make it do a couple different things. I typically just make it disappear or fly out. So as I touch it, it leaves the screen. And you can also indicate which direction you want to go. So that's how I format my review game. Lab days, this is actually kind of a shift of gear, but this is another sample lesson that I have attached. On lab days, sometimes I have labs that are already formatted in a design that I like. Either I've created it through Word, which will eventually transfer to Google, or I have a PDF through my book supplies. So this is an example of a natural selection lab that we use come February, March. So then I use a screenshot tool again. This is what I usually use for the warm-up questions, and all I have to do is take a picture of the questions. Go over to the page, cut that out, we'll put it on our blank screen. So this might be my startup page for the day. I might have a timer over on the side letting them know this is how much time you have. I typically lock this, and then I randomly pick on students, going back to the randomizer. Where did I put it? Well, if we use the numbers, I randomly pick on students to come up and write their answers directly into the board. So they just simply write it in along the lines. And because I lock the screen, that'll make sure that they do not move this around as they're writing in the answers. For this natural selection lab, we'll leave this as a white screen. Another tool that I've used quite a bit in the smartboard or on the smartboard is the table tool. This allows you to identify how many rows and columns you want and insert it into the screen. A little bit of trick, so if you click off of it, some people are like, well, how do I click on it and make it move? You have to highlight at least the majority of it. You grab the box in the corner and then you can place it anywhere on the screen. You can also blow up the boxes. For my particular lab, the students have colored hole punch dots, and they have to indicate how many of each color they killed in this natural selection lab. At the end, when they're analyzing data, they have to create graphs, and they need to graph their own results and compare it in relation to the rest of the class. So I typically have it set up to where the chart is in the front of the room, and as they complete the lab, they have about 40 tests by the time they're finished. Then they come up to the front and they can enter their group's results right here on the front. So once again, to make sure that they do not move the screen around, I like to lock it. And then that allows them, as they finish the class, and you can change the colors up here, to come up and enter however many numbers of each color they picked up. And I typically have a total column here on the end. So that is how I run my natural selection lab. A couple more tricks to the tables. These can be very frustrating if you're not familiar with them. If I have stages, for instance, for respiration, the 3 stages of respiration, I like to have the students learn the location, what we start with, what we end with. And sometimes if I have them answer the question for me, or to fill out or identify some of these things, location, what we start with, I don't want them to see the answers, but I want to have it set up ahead of time. That way I can save myself a little bit of time. Come on. What is going on here? So what you can do with these tables is if you click on one of the boxes, you have a little arrow that pops up. And if you click on that, you can actually add a specific shade to that cell. At the same time, if you want to merge cells, if you highlight, for instance, 3 cells, that allows you to turn 3 cells into 1. I believe you might even have the option to, to split a cell. It didn't let me do it that time. Maybe if you click on one of them. There it is. Lets you even tell you how many times you could split it. There you go. So those are a few of the tricks that you might find useful if you want to use the Smart Notebook software. I hope this information helps. If you are designing a lesson, this is actually the review lesson that I use with my students. So there's they had to turn in an assignment first. There is The crossword answers, I usually open up the number